We now understand a little bit what's going on inside the female, a little bit of what's going on inside the male, and obviously some way the sperm and egg will get together and conception or fertilization will occur. Obviously the most natural way for this would be through sexual intercourse. This happens not only in humans but in many animals, and even you could say flowers are the sexual reproductive organs of flowering plants. Getting the sperm that's in the pollen to the egg that is inside the ovary of a flower is the same concept that we'll be talking about here when it comes to human reproduction. Getting the sperm to the egg. And this picture on this slide is showing a sperm being taken into the egg. In the Life's Greatest Miracle video, they showed some of this as well. So conception, fertilization. Obviously, under natural circumstances, you would need a male to ejaculate, typically inside the female vagina, so that it puts the most sperm in the best environment, the best chance, and closest to the egg as possible. We talked earlier that it's going to be about 300 to 500 million sperm that are released, but it only takes one sperm to actually get to the egg. And so the sperm are going to be released close to the cervix opening inside the vagina, and then they are going to make their way up into the uterus, and then it kind of depends. Some sperm will go one way, some sperm will go the other way, but where is the egg? Is there an egg even released inside this female? Has she ovulated in the last couple of days? If not, then the chances of fertilizing an egg would be greatly decreased, but there's still a chance. So maybe there's an egg over here on this side, so the sperm need to make their way over to that egg, and then we could have this chance of fertilization to occur. So the egg has to be in an oviduct, and there's usually just one on one side. The idea of sperm getting to the egg is not an easy task. As mentioned, some will go the wrong way, about half of them will go the wrong direction, and some of them will be attacked by the female's white blood cells and destroyed in the process even as they're heading to the egg. Some of them will get stuck in the sides of the fallopian tube and just kind of start trying to fertilize the side of the fallopian tube very unsuccessfully, but they don't exactly have eyes to see where they're going, so they're just swimming through fluids trying to get the right direction. Also mentioned that the female vagina is incredibly acidic, so many sperm won't even make it out of the vagina. Only some of them will start to make their way up into the uterus. During the ovulation time, the female vagina will actually, the female cervix, which is usually plugged up with mucus, will make a current of liquidy environment from the vagina, from the vagina up into the uterus. And so there is maybe a liquidy current trying to encourage more sperm up into the fallopian tubes if possible. Once sperm get to the egg is located, they do start to dissolve their way in, so they release some chemicals. That's what's happening right here. Release some chemicals to try to dissolve that outer edge, that goo that's on the outside. And once it gets through, it will enter the egg. That's what we can kind of see happening in this step and this step down here. I'll try to get that into the egg, and we're trying to get the dad's DNA here and mom's DNA here to mix together to get a complete set of DNA, a total of 46 chromosomes, 23 from mom, 23 from dad. When that happens, there is an instant biochemical change that occurs. Really what it is doing is kind of putting up a force field so that no more DNA can get in. When there's a dad's set of DNA joining a mom's set of DNA, we don't need any more DNA. We've got all we need. So this biochemical force field gets put up to say enough is enough. No more sperm can get in. And so we will then have contained inside of this structure a single zygote, which has two sets of DNA, 46 total chromosomes. That zygote, the single cell zygote, as stated here, with 46 chromosomes in a human, is one cell big, but it has all the information that it needs to develop into whatever it's going to develop into, in this case, a human. Then cells just start dividing. You are hundreds of millions of cells right now, but you started out as one. So one had to turn into two, two turns into four, four turns into eight, 8 turns into 16, 16 into 32, 32 into 64, 64 into 132, 132 into 264, 264 into 512 I think we're at, and 512 into 1024, you get the point. We can keep going on until we get up to many, many more cells. But this thing down here called the blastula is just a mass of 100 plus cells that's kind of hollowed out inside with a liquidy environment. It kind of looks like a water balloon of cells. And that's pretty much what we were. None of these cells really knew what they're going to be just yet, but the plan is in place, and each of those cells has the DNA to turn on the right genes at the right time to become all the cells that we need in our body. This blastula does make its way then into the uterus when it's about 100 cells big, about 7 to 9 days, maybe after ovulation, very close to the end of the menstrual cycle. It'll start to implant itself into the uterine lining, into the endometrium itself, which is the outer lining of the uterus, and it will start to then dig its way in and intertwine itself with mom's tissue to make what we call a placenta. That's going to be the structure that nourishes the baby for the next 9 months. The main idea is that this developing mass of cells, we can call it a soon-to-be baby, will be using mom's nutrients, taking from mom, almost like a parasite, taking from mom everything it needs to survive, food and oxygen, but getting rid of wastes from the baby cells and giving them to mom as it continues to develop. While it's doing this implanting, it does then, this mass of cells down here, what they're calling the future embryo, will start to send messages to mom's brain saying, hey, you're pregnant now. Just so you know, don't send any more eggs out. We don't need any more eggs getting fertilized, please. So it stops the whole menstrual cycle and really focuses in the uterus on the development of this embryo, then fetus, then baby. As it's continuing to develop, it'll start to form some layers of membrane around it, and the biggie is the amnion, sometimes called the amniotic sac. It's the membrane that surrounds the baby, and it is contained with fluid surrounding the baby, and that fluid is kind of like the baby floating around inside of a water balloon. The amniotic sac is what breaks just before birth, so you might have heard that term, oh, a woman's water broke, or her waters have broken. That's the amniotic sac breaking, and the amniotic fluid is what is then slowly usually trickling out of her body, indicating that it's probably very close to time to give birth to this child. And so that water surrounding the baby protects it, allows the baby to be buoyant and kind of float in this inside this structure, so that it's protecting the baby, but it still allows the baby to be free to move for much of its development. Here's the young developing baby inside of mom at a fairly young age. We're talking about probably the 5 to 6 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks here in this one. It's just underneath the surface, just a little bump in the uterus. There'd be no indication of being pregnant here. This is inside the uterus. Starting to see some of the blood vessels from baby here are starting to grow out and intertwine with mom's blood vessels. They don't hook up together. It's not like hooking up the garden hose to another garden hose so that the water will flow through 2 garden hoses. The blood vessels get close to each other but don't actually connect. This way, mom does not have to have the same blood type as baby, and they won't attack each other's blood cells and even body cells. And so they can exchange things, good things going into baby from mom, and the waste and stuff like that going into mom from the baby. But at the same time, if mom puts dangerous chemicals into her body, whether they be alcohol or drugs or any of that kind of stuff, and even sometimes caffeine intake can be considered to be something that a female needs to watch, how much caffeine they put into their body, or nicotine when it comes to smoking. All those things will go into the baby if it gets into mom's blood. So certainly things to consider when one is pregnant. Showed that on the last slide here, the umbilical cord, I circled it there in the middle. That's the umbilical cord, which carries blood to and from the baby. These are the blood vessels of the baby. They go to the placenta, from baby to the placenta, and vice versa. And I mentioned before that mom's and baby's blood do not circulate together. They get close to each other. Diffusion can happen between the two, but the two will not actually mix. This is a lot further on in development. They showed a great progression in Life's Greatest Miracle of all the kind of stages along the way, but this shows late in development some of that over here, the intertwining of blood vessels, where mom's blood meets baby's blood at the placenta. And you can see that placenta is a pretty large structure over here, and baby here is head down, ready to come out of the natural birth canal and be born. And so not too far away now, is only a couple of months away, but getting very developed. And really the last thing I want to try to mention here is a bit about that birth process. And when a woman goes into active labor, that's when the muscles are used to try to open up that cervix to the 10 centimeter mark, about 4.5 inches in diameter. Baby's flipped upside down, head first is the key there. Much easier to get the head and then the shoulders out if it's head first. You may have heard the term a breech baby. That's when they are coming out feet first, and trying to get a foot out and then coordinate to get the other foot out at the right time can be difficult. That's usually a bad situation, and if the baby is found to be breech, a woman might get a cesarean section or a C-section, taking the baby out surgically. After the baby is born, let's assume through either of these processes, whether it's natural birth or a C-section, the baby's born, the mom has to also get the placenta out, and dad might cut the umbilical cord, but the placenta is still inside mom. And so that placenta usually has to be pushed out in a similar fashion to the baby, a couple of pushes, and the placenta will come out as what is oftentimes called the afterbirth. It does detach from the uterus after maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, and then can be removed from the body. Now I know there's a few more slides left in this PowerPoint. Just due to time and some of the stuff that's going on with this class, I won't ask you to get all the details necessarily about twins and that kind of stuff. But a couple of good things hopefully you've learned from this PowerPoint, and I guess some of the stuff on here is certainly fair game for next week on a final exam. Thanks a lot.